Well, here to give us his analysis on Dorian's track is Joe Bastardi. Joe's chief meteorologist for WeatherBELL Analytics. Joe, good to have you back with us again. Listen, is this thing going to hit Florida? Will it go Cat 5, do you think?
I don't think it'll go Cat 5, but we think it's has a good shot Cat 4. What it's going to be, though, Pat, is a fist of fury. It's not going to be like Irma, where Irma was spread out all over the place. You know, Irma had hurricane-force winds extending 150 miles out from the center. This one's going to be much more focused and concentrated. And part of the reason is the weather pattern over the Caribbean and in the Western Atlantic in general is not that favorable in the large scale. So the storm has to stay small. It is going to stay small, relatively speaking. It's not going to be one of these things where the storm's hitting Florida and already the clouds are into North Carolina. Remember how big Irma was. But that being said, if it stays small, once it makes the bend back to the west, that's when you'll see some intensification. Already this morning, some of the drier air that has been around has tried to work its way into the storm, and it's been fighting that. But you also notice, folks, it would not go west into the Caribbean. If it had gone west into the Caribbean, it would just die into the central Caribbean. That's a graveyard of storms at this time of the year. It becomes more productive for development in the Caribbean later in the year, but right now this is heading right for the area that in our preseason forecast we said you got to look out for outside of the Caribbean. So it's an ugly looking situation.
What can those residents expect, those in, say, Fort Lauderdale, in the path of the storm?
Well, we've still got several days. It is, you know, my favorite saying with the weather is only God knows tomorrow. The rest of us just guess. But the fact is that looking at this, it's going to be approaching that area Sunday night and Monday. Now, the slower it moves, the better the chance it tries to turn northwest just up to the east coast of Florida. And that would mean that, well, they'd have a formidable storm from Fort Lauderdale to Jacksonville, but if the center stayed just offshore, be like what you had in Matthew. Remember, Matthew stayed just offshore. And as a matter of fact, the end game of this could be very close to Matthew, where you have a storm that's hugging the coast all the way up to North Carolina, perhaps Virginia Beach. So about a week from now, this could be impacting folks all the way up into the mid-Atlantic states. But for right now, my take is that on this northwest path, it'll hold its own, maybe fluctuate up and down. But once it turns to the west, you know, the old-time meteorologist, I guess I'm getting to be there now, 64, but I was taught when you see these storms bend and come back to the west, look out, that's when they're going to really intensify.
Well, Joe, let me ask you this. This is hurricane really number one, I guess, this season. What do you think's coming down the road?
Well, I think again, much of the area that got devastated by Irma, you notice how Irma and Maria in the Caribbean, much of that area has probably got lower than normal activity. The problem is, Pat, we forecasted what we call scattershot season, where things that get in close to the United States coast, you saw what happened with Barry, right? Intensified near the coast. This is the same kind of situation. So the definition of an active season, even though the total season may be at or below normal, an active season to me is if I get hit by a hurricane, it's an active season, and we definitely have this southeast United States threat now.
Well, Joe, I appreciate it. And please come back, and I want to stay with you as to what's happening. Appreciate it very much.
Well, Pat, why don't you have me on when there's a big high-pressure system around? Everybody's going to associate me with terrible weather.
We'll get some beautiful weather coming up. This will be the man that forecasts a beautiful sky, sunny skies, and following winds.
I love it.
All right.